very complicated.
Oh.
And, yeah, wait, that's not the right button. This is the right button. All right. Welcome to the Big Story Podcast. I'm Alex Morrissey.
I'm Kenny Dufna.
And today we have a great guest from the other side of the world.
What?
Mauricio Leone.
Yay!
Right now it's springtime. It's springtime where Mauricio is. So it's
oh my god.
Yeah, it's starting to get hotter here, you know.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, the weather is kind of strange this year here in Brazil. I don't know, maybe winter has been too long. I don't know. The climate changes in the world. I don't know exactly the reason, but we were expecting hotter days, let's say this way, and here in Brazil by this time, by spring. But at least today we are having a nice day here. It's a good day.
That's nice. Well, it's sunny where I live, but it is cold. So
it is hot in Florida right now.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's almost winter and it's hot in Florida. That's not a good
thing. It's cold at night. It's hot in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, see.
Well, that's Weather Report is sponsored by
the Big Story Podcast.
Oh, wait, we're sponsoring our own segments. That's a bad business move. We got to get other companies.
Woo!
Here is a new button, so he's just throw the push button.
People listening to this have to watch.
Right. The people listening on Apple Podcasts have no idea what's happening.
No.
So, Mauricio, you live in Brazil.
Yeah. Here in São Paulo.
I know. Whoa! Oh, I didn't even know you lived in Sao Paulo. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about the Formula One race, the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Which is now officially the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, no longer the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Yeah. Because other cities, Rio de Janeiro, wanted a lot to have the Grand Prix, the Brazilian Grand Prix over there, and there was a political fight to bring to São Paulo the race.
Wow. I don't know if I invented this word, but I coined this word years ago with a good Brazilian friend of mine. Is that he would tell me he grew up I think he grew up in Rio, and he told me like how like it's it's super different than living in America, and like how like he like all these really wealthy kids that he went to school with, and they had bodyguards and they had all this stuff, and they lived in these gated communities, blah blah blah. And I thought and he's like, oh yeah, and like people like take helicopters around, and I said like there's wealthy people and then there's Brazilianaires, and that's what I came up with, because that's just living life in a completely different level. So, are you a Brazilianaire? I just want to
no.
Well,
no. I hope one day, maybe.
Okay.
Well, hope one day become, but not nowadays. I'm just a Brazilian worker.
Well, that's okay. I'm just an American worker. But yeah, that's I hear all wonderful stories. Everybody I've met from Brazil is they're just the most enjoyable people. Very, very rich, and colorful sort of personalities to everyone I've met. So, which kind of makes sense that, you get in the arts, because being expressive is part of the jive, So, if you you do a bunch of different stuff, but were you always into comic books, or were you always into animation? Like, what was your...
No. My background, I started working for publicity.
Okay.
Doing illustration. Then I went to comics. Started working first as a colorist. I made some comic series as a colorist. Then I passed it through to pencils. Started to draw.
Okay.
My comics, and from then on I am at this career. But this business of animation is something very new for me.
Okay.
It came for me it came, I know, a few time ago. I'm sorry, first, my English is
No.
not that good. I'll try to express the best way I can. But
Phil, we had Phil practice his Portuguese, and then unfortunately Phil couldn't make today's show. So we don't have our official big story translator.
I will do my best here. I will try to. But I have been in 10 years making comics, drawing comics, and nowadays I entered for this area of animation. So it was a big opportunity for me, and it was something that I really wanted to work with, to work in the process of production, especially in character concepts. That was something that I really enjoyed. Even in my comics projects, I always wanted to have a little time to produce those concepts and think about the characters that would show up in the histories, in comics. So for me, it was somehow, even if I have never worked in animations, it was something natural for me to go to this area, and it's been a very interesting experience, especially working in such a great project that we are working now.
Yeah, it's interesting. The explosion with the internet, and the usability and free, to be able to send files, from your computer anywhere in the world, nearly at light speed. It really changed the whole dynamic of how comics, and clearly animation are created, because I remember there were very few, artists from overseas working, for Marvel and DC when I was in the business in the 90s. Not to say there weren't, but they were really kind of from sort of specific hubs. There were people in England primarily. There were a few, I think, in the maybe overseas, in Asia, but they were, they had a very sort of narrow, like they had the system figured out. Okay, we have the UPS, DHL, whatever the way that they would get things across, and that, and those people worked on projects where they weren't being fed pages. They were given whole issues, and then they would send the issues back. But now you can send a page as you do it. Every day you send a page. And I remember this has got to be in I'm going to say it's like 2008, maybe, or a little earlier. I was at New York Comic Cons when I lived in New York, and I came upon these, I think, like 7 young guys from Portugal, and they saved their money, and they got like a row of tables in Artist Alley for themselves, and they, in a hotel, and they probably all stayed in the same hotel room. I mean, that's where they saved the dollars, but they were there to try to, like, hey, we want to draw comics for Marvel or DC. Like, they wanted to draw American comics, and they were phenomenal. Like, their artwork was amazing. It was totally different, but it was still like professional. Like, you're like, okay, this doesn't look like Jim Lee drew a comic book, but it looked like this is a comic drawn by a pro. And I was just fascinated by this because, if it was 1994, it would have been like, boy, that's a big gamble for something that, like, there was very little chance of payoff. But now, boom, they can get the job. So I think it's amazing how it's opened up, because, like, we now can look on the comic book shelves and see a wealth, like, of talent from around the world, which I think is mind blowing, because we're seeing how everybody draws something differently in the world. So you were working in publicity and advertising. How do you say, like, oh, I'm going to go from there and I'm going to hop over and become a comic book creator? Like, did you know people, like, in Brazil who are doing comics?
Yeah. I always, my passion was always for comics.
Okay.
When I started drawing, and when I started studying drawing, I wanted to be a comic book professional. That was my dream.
Yeah.
So, here in Brazil, we don't have a strong comic book industry.
Mhm.
See, it's not like it over there in America or in Europe or in Japan.
Yeah.
That is absolutely huge, but we don't have, and this culture of comics is not a very, let's say, popular culture here in Brazil. Nowadays it's better, but let's say 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, that was not so popular. And there were few places that you could really study comics or how to do comics here in Brazil. So when I started working with publicity, with magazines, this kind of illustration business, my thought was always go for the comics when you have an opportunity. So I went to one of these few places here in São Paulo where you can learn how to do comics.
Oh.
Basically, we had two schools here in São Paulo, and I think maybe they were by that time the only two schools in Brazil. So I'm not absolutely sure, but I'm pretty. I think that's pretty correct. It's information. And this school were founded by the first Brazilians that went to comics in United States.
Okay.
So the founders were the artists that started to work for Marvel, for DC, or Image, and those guys founded those schools to try to create more comic book artists,
Right.
in Brazil, because they knew that there were a lot of people that really wanted to follow this career. And I went to study into those schools and learned a lot with those guys, because for me those guys they are, how can I say, they are legends here in Brazil, because they made the way, by like you were saying before, without internet, without the technology that we have nowadays, that we can reach each other so quickly, so easily. They made it. They with fax, UPS, FedEx. They I don't know how, but they did that. They were very talented. They were very talented artists, and they made it this way and created this culture here in Brazil, and even in comics, that to start to look at Brazilian artists. So I went to study with them, develop my craft, and had start to appear some opportunities, and I started to create my portfolio and try to have some opportunities, and this naturally came. I started doing one job here, another there, over there, and when I saw I was, let's say, walking in this career, I also became a teacher in those schools.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I was teaching and working with comics here in Brazil. So that was for me. That was my way. Let's say, as we don't have a formal. We don't have a formal. I don't know if that's correct to say in English, but a formation, a graduation, formal graduation to become, a comic book artist here. We have to learning with other artists. So I worked by side with other artists, learned a lot with them. No, I'm always learning, but that's how I think I reached, let's say, a reasonable level to start working in comics.
I think that's. I mean, listen, it's a very lonely career, being a comic book artist is, often you are by yourself in a room, staring at a drawing table or a screen, self-slaving away. And but I tell you that when you're working with other people in whatever the thing is, but it's that time you get to see someone do something, you go, oh, that's how someone does that. Oh, okay. And then you kind of throw that in the old, brain box and go, okay, well, now I know that that's the little trick to learn. And I'm thinking here, it'd be interesting if there's a way to do that, like in a more formal sense, now that we have all this sort of sharing streaming technology, where people could actually like sort of become digital assistants to a comic book creator, but that way they get to kind of see how the process, goes under. There's your $10 idea. Somebody go make $10 off of that one. But so you were working, assisting, and working with other artists and sort of soaking up their knowledge. Now, how do you like, because the other thing I see that you do, and I see a lot of, you're getting work overseas, and that's a really, to me, seems like a completely complicated process. Like, how would I go about finding clients in the other side of the world, or even the next country over? Like, for me, I go, oh boy, that sounds way more work than I could even conceive of. But how do you go from, because how we came into contact, backing this up a bit for people to give a little context, is that you are the artist for an old friend of ours, a college friend of ours, Blake Seals, for his comic book Evil Monkey Man. And you did work on a project we'll talk about a little later in the episode. But it's like, I'm like, how did Blake find you, or how do other people find you? And like, I'm fascinated by this. So tell me, how do you go from like sitting at somebody else's desk to, working on someone else's project?
Well, first in Brazil, when the artists started working for comics in America, we started to have some agents here that were doing this, let's say, this contact with the publishers, and bringing to them all artist works here. So I started with an agent that has shown my work. I guess it was in some, I don't remember if it was in San Diego or New York, to publishers. Right. He was an artist as well. He was one of the ones that started working for comics here in Brazil. So he had a good relation with publishers, and he took my work, my portfolio, with other artists, and that's how I first started to working with comics. And but I stayed some years with him, but I wanted to do that by myself. For me, I would like, let's say, how can I say it? I think it was time to cut the intermediator. I don't know if that's correct.
Cut the cord.
Cut the cord. Yeah, I wanted to go direct to the publisher. So what I did was I went to New York Comic Con with my material. Yeah, I printed.
When was this?
No, this was 2018.
Okay. So
2018.
All right.
2008. Yes. No, 2019. I'm sorry.
So the last New York Comic Con, right before.
The last physical New York Comic Con, let's say. Yeah. Because by then I was working with my agent, and I want to do that by myself, to make my choices, or at least just make. I would like to see the possibilities by my eyes, let's say. Sure. Right. Because I was always through his filter. Of course I trusted him, but I would like to. For me, it was important to make that. So I went to New York Comic Con. That was the last Comic Con, as you said, physically, I think now.
Yeah.
And before this pandemic, and over there I printed a lot of portfolios, and went there searching for publishers, giving my portfolio to them, getting cards, making contacts, and I went to Mark Comics. Oh my God, how is the name? In fairs, it's not table, it's the stand.
Right. Yeah. We say set up. Yeah, like they're set up.
Okay, they're set up. Okay. Yeah. And I went there, and I called my attention because I saw a lot of interesting characters over there. So I went there to speak with them, gave my portfolio, and that's how Blake found me, let's
Okay.
say, and he reached me and we start to you know to work together.
Yeah. Well, so okay, just squeezing a little thing in here. So you went to New York Comic Con in 2019. So now I know, I'm sure there are comic conventions in Brazil. I'm sure that they exist. I don't know the scale of them. I don't know if they are on the the same size. Are they as big as New York Comic Con, or are they?
We have one in São Paulo that is it's called Comic Con Experience. It's
Okay.
very, very big. I have been there many times in the artist alley over
Sure.
there. But I think the main difference is that, for example, in San Diego and in New York, we have a lot of publishers,
Right.
American publishers. Here in Brazil, we don't have. Maybe we only have the Brazilian publishers.
Mm-hmm.
And our market is very small. In some edition comes maybe one publisher from one company,
Sure.
and we can talk to him. But there's a huge difference if you want to try to get work to go to New York. That in my opinion, at least from what I have seen, I think is the best to reach the publishers. And here in Brazil, here in Brazil is a good event for you to show your work, sell your stuff, but to reach publishers to get your work is not that good.
Yeah.
But it's very big. A lot of our international artists come here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, like anytime you hear like interviews with like rock and roll stars, AC/DC or Guns N' Roses or the Foo Fighters, the second that anybody mentions Brazil, like their eyes get wide, because going to Brazil is like going to the Mecca of music fans, apparently, when it comes to heavy rock. I don't know. Is the metal scene down there big, Gary? Do you know if like at the like?
I have no idea.
No. I mean, like, do they love? I mean, do you know if like the Brazilians love like real heavy metal? Like they love like rock.
Everybody loves heavy metal. Come on, there's people all over the world that loves heavy metal. Shit.
But I mean, like, so like, yeah. So because they probably bring down artists from Europe and from America down as guests to the show, to the shows there.
There's something else. As we are in Brazil, we don't have a lot of opportunities to see, let's say, those big rock stars. For example, there isn't a Brazilian tour. I don't know, Metallica Brazilians tour. That does not exist.
Right.
Like in America, that they travel through.
Sure, they do 50 shows.
Yeah. So in some way for us, when they have all these great bands have a great fan base here in Brazil, and when they come, it's like a unique opportunity for the fans to go to a show, to watch a concert, to be a bit near there. So I think that's why those artists are received so well here in Brazil, and people went crazy here, goes crazy when they are here, because it's rare to be here. It's not something common for us. So we only see them through television,
Yeah.
And in general, they are very big rock stars or singers, or so. I think that's why people in Brazil in general are very emotional, let's say.
Yeah.
I don't know. Brazilian people are called the happy people. Like they are always happy. There is this fame. That's not absolutely true, but we in somehow is because living through all the disadvantages and problems that we have here, the Brazilian people can still smile and move on. Let's say, with all the problems we have here. So, and keep smiling. That's something that's real from our people. It's a very well, I don't know if that's correct to say, well-humored people.
Yeah, good natured, good humor. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's all appears when someone, a big star or someone that's very loved, come to us in here. So that's why I think the artists feel this energy. You
Yeah.
know, they feel this passion.
So it's 2019. You're up there. You're handing your portfolios out, left and right to anybody who's got something with staples on their table to sell. Like, hey, I'm done. Yeah, and it is. I mean, for anybody who hasn't been to New York Comic Con, there are so many publishers there. I mean, it is the land of make believe when you go into it. There are publishers of every size. Going from Marvel and DC, who typically have these gigantic booth setups, which look like car dealerships, and then you can get down to just somebody who has one table, but they're making comic books, and it's really quite I mean, and you have to be so intrepid when you go, to push yourself. Go, okay, well, I'm going to go talk to everybody I can possibly go to. And it's great because everyone's there for the same reason. Everyone's there because of this love for comic books and this passion for comics. So, so you went up there and you made contacts. You met someone that we know and love, and it's amazing. Like, oh yeah, there's because I didn't know you were in Brazil when he first mentioned you,
Okay.
and I'm like, oh my god, like that's amazing. So it's so very cool. And I think, and I think it's just great. I think it's just fantastic to be able to kind of create with everybody. You working with this other guy, and next thing you know, you're making a comic book, and you don't even have to. I mean, you may never even have met, but you actually met Blake. So I mean, you're making books, and I guess. I mean, I want to go back just slightly. What were the comic books and characters that sort of blew your mind, like when you were a kid, like that made you fall in love with comics?
Yeah. Well, I think the first one was Spider-Man.
Yes.
Spider-Man was my entrance door for comics. I can say that because Spider-Man is a huge popular character in the entire world, and he was very popular here in Brazil as well.
Yeah.
So the first, let's say, comic that came to my hand was Spider-Man, and I started reading Spider-Man. I started to enjoy, to love, to read those stories from Spider-Man, and I read years and years and years. I've been reading Spider-Man, and the second one. I always read Avengers, but the second one that always made me crazy, let's say, for comics was the X-Men comics.
Okay.
For me, they were amazing. And of course, Superman was also a character that for me was just, I was passionate for Superman stories as well. So I think those were the main comics are the characters that made me create this passion for comics. But the language as well. I always liked this thing of tell a story with images, and comics was somehow in comics was somehow possible to tell any story that you would like to. So it was not the term by the time, but now I call it's a media that you can do any kind of story, you can imagine it, and you can build any kind of story. You don't have no limit. Let's say you don't have limits to create and do the stories as you had once in movies or TV, because everything is so big, it's so expensive, and you need so much technology. But I think that always fascinated me in comics, and then I started reading a lot of comics after that. My brother and my cousin that were older than me, they were always buying a lot of comics, and I was always reading and getting fascinated by the characters, by the stories, and I think that's mainly how I started this process too.
It's really amazing when you're little how influential what older sort of siblings or relatives or friends, how influential, like in they are to us. Like, so if you have an older brother or a cousin and they like something, you know, there's such an ambition when you're young to try to gain their, you know, their attention, that you're like, okay, I'll check this thing out. And next thing you know, but you want to like it too because they like it. So if,
Yeah.
you know, I remember being a little kid and being over at a friend's house, and their older brothers, you know, they were listening to all this music, you know, back when everything was on a record. And like you know, and like, so you're sitting there, you go, okay, I want to listen to this, you know, and I think that's how I discovered listening to Kiss, you know, as a kid, because there were these older boys and they were listening to Kiss. And but comics are the same thing. I remember, you know, being a kid and like, oh, here, read this, you know, and what is this? And you open up a comic. So, all right. So I'm with you. Spider-Man, #1. He's the best. If I would drop most anything to do anything with Spider-Man, like he really is my most beloved character in the comic book, you know, pantheon. He's the most fun. He's the most fun to draw for sure.
Yeah.
Even though he's got all those webs. What are you drawing, Gary, by the way?
I am drawing Evil Monkey Man with
with Phil.
Phil.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very cool.
Very huge and very thick. I like it. That's awesome.
Huge and thick.
Yes. That's a different podcast, Huge and Thick. So now you're working digitally, right? You work, so yeah. And now, did you always work digitally, or did you?
No, in the beginning, I started working analogical, that traditionally, yes. And I did all my work through pencils and inks and into paper, you know.
Yeah.
But with time and the deadlines, and I started to realize that I needed to go to digital, and I adapted to digital. And since then, I've been working with digital every day.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the process of doing that physically, you know, traditional.
Yeah.
As you said, I really love the process, but for, I think I'm so used nowadays to work in digital that is almost automatic for me to.
Well, I mean, the thing is like, you know, it's a product. I mean, at the bottom line, at the end of the day, you're making a product. You're not, I mean, there's art involved in it, but you're not you're making a product. And while there is this wonderful, I mean, it has been a long time since I've drawn a comic book page on paper with a pencil. But like every time I draw using, you know, a tablet, I do go, oh man, I miss working on a piece of paper with the table, with the, you know, the angle.
I don't. Oh my God. What's wrong with you?
Oh no, because there's a romantic quality to it. There's a beautiful thing. There's a, you know, I mean, listen, who doesn't love going to the art store to buy art supplies? I mean, that's really like,
I don't like doing it.
All right, everybody but Gary enjoys going to the art store and buying art. I still love going. I'm thankful that I'm married to an artist, so I get to go to the art store and not feel like some sort of creep just walking around staring at pencils. But it's so, and you know, and I was an early adopter of the Wacom tablets, and you know, because I've been using Photoshop for so long, and it was great. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. But when I got my hands on Clip Studio, I was blown away comparatively to using Photoshop. And I use Photoshop nearly every day of my work life. But for drawing comics, man, there's no, like, if you're drawing comics with a computer using a tablet, it's Clip Studio in my mind. I can't speak to iPads and that type of stuff, but you know, if you're using the computer, I don't know why it's, yeah.
I have to agree with you. I think, I don't know, but clip art is very similar to Photoshop in many ways,
Sure.
you know, but it has some small differences that I think that makes the process of doing comics, of drawing, let's say, a little bit more similar or more easier to do with traditional. So I think for colors, Photoshop is still the best software when you have to do colors. But to draw, to ink, I think Clip Art Studio is just almost perfect. It's almost a perfect software.
The panel tools, just that right alone, creating your pages and having the panel tool is great. Now, of course, it's not an artistic panel. You're not hand drawing a panel. I get all that stuff, and that's a style and cool. But if you're drawing comic books, which are, standard operating procedure, and you need a 6-point, line to, do your panel borders in, and you have, it doesn't matter what the layout of the panels is, you're gonna get it done way faster. And then, the perspective tools, like, they're all there to make that job so much more efficient.
And I think that all pencils and brushes, they are more precise.
Yeah,
no, that's correct. I think that when you use them, I feel that the pressure, the way I move, they give me a better answer. Let's say in the work. So for me, inking, for example, I think it's very, very practical and it's very precise to ink in Clip Art Studio. And if you have to do corrections, it's it's easier, no? So
I know, I totally agree. I mean, I think it just affords a lot faster route to that finished black and white piece of artwork. And I agree, like that precision and that sort of accuracy or fidelity of whatever that brush line or that pen line that you're looking to get out of your tool, it doesn't I don't get that same sense when I'm using the Photoshop version. It just, but I still agree with you on the coloring aspect. I don't think clip art's tools are as powerful on the color rendering side of the artwork. And however you want to call it, intuitive on Photoshop, it doesn't feel as intuitive when I'm coloring in Clip Studio. I don't seem to be able to do the same sort of effects as quickly or as easily. And maybe that just may be me not being as practiced with it. But
I think it has improved over the versions, this color part, let's say. I think nowadays the newest versions, they have it's better, this part of color. And if you don't have to do let's say colors that are very complex, if you are working, for example, in a more, I don't know if that's correct to say in English, but in a synthetic way, in a streamlined way, graphical way, more graphical colors, not artistical colors, but more graphical, I think he works fine as well. Because he has the basic tools are in general the same. I think maybe Photoshop will give you a little more space to try other effects, do some other kinds of changes, or let's say special effects and this kind of stuff in a easier way. Maybe. Well, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Because when I worked in colors, I used Photoshop. But when I started working as a penciler, inker, I always used Clip Art Studio. Since the first time I used it, I saw that it was, for me, it was better, worked better.
I was excited when I heard that you use Clip. That was just, I'm like, oh yay, somebody else is on board with that. If I was trying to, if I was going to be a comic book creator, I think I would be absolutely using that. I mean, listen, people are like, if I was young and I was getting in the racket to say I'm going to be a comic book creator, I would get an iPad Pro and use Procreate or whatever, because I think that barrier is pretty low in that respect. I mean, you can have a tool that does everything you need it to do to create a piece of artwork, to be published. But the next step up, I think, would be, a computer with a Clip Studio, because I think that's the next level there. Yeah, I've only colored one thing with Clip Studio. I tried on multiple occasions. I would do something, I'm like, okay, I'll color it now, and I just, I would pull the ejection, lever pretty quickly and hop over to Photoshop, because I just couldn't get the things I wanted done. The one thing I did, it wasn't very complicated. It was more artistic, in the sense where I was using soft gradients and and soft brushing to kind of get a very modeled look, and that worked fine. But everything that I want to do, like in Photoshop, I just can't easily do. I can't just quickly change the line color to something and then make that a gradient, and like it doesn't move smoothly for that. Maybe 2 or 3 versions from now they'll figure that out. So yeah. So I'm going to put up a couple pieces of yours here, because
great. I started first using Manga Studio. That was the original
version. Right now, I've never used that.
Yeah, I started with Manga Studio. Then they made ClipArt Studio, and I started using ClipArt Studio because Manga Studio was a Japanese version.
Yep.
Of course, it was in English, everything in English, but it was a Japanese version created for manga, for doing manga.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that all your pages came out backwards is always complicated to me.
Yeah, it's a complicated reading.
Made your whole comic book turns the whole backwards. Well, I can't read my own comics. So you posted this the other day. I want to know what this is all about. So what?
I'm going to explain to you.
Yes.
This is art I made for a friend.
Okay.
That asked me, but it's very personal as well, because these guys are Trinity and Bud Spencer. When I was a child, I loved their movies they made. So they made a lot of movies. I don't know if you seen them. Don't know if they were popular in America, but they were very popular here in Brazil. Both are Italians actors.
Okay.
And they made those. First, they started in Western, Italian Western.
Yeah,
and
sure.
then they made more, let's say, contemporary stories. So they were both, let's say, they were here in Brazil and in Europe. They were stars and made those movies that they were adventures. They were funny adventures, let's say. So they have a comical way of, for example, action.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like something not serious movies, but funny movies with action, with fighting, and they were always brawling, fighting bad guys, and involved in confusions, and they really, for me, they were really, in my childhood, they were really important for me. I really loved those movies.
Okay.
I always watched them. And when the pandemic started, we stayed a lot at home.
Yes.
So I reviewed those movies.
Oh, very cool.
I remember I said, man, I want to rewatch those movies, So I did that. So I started rewatching all those movies, because you can find in streaming, and you can find on YouTube. You can find their old movies, they're from the 70s, or some from the 80s maximum. So I rewatched a lot of those movies. So I spoke to my friend that has same age as me, and he loved all those movies, and said, man, why don't you do a piece of art in homage of these guys? So I said, oh yeah, that's a good idea, because I was watching a lot of their movies. So I made this piece of this piece of art I made.
I love that. I love the idea. I mean, I get it. I totally get that. Like, it's I'm gonna have to check. I'll bet you Phil knows about these movies. He knows a lot about older, fun action movies. He's deeply steeped in that. But I do see that, like, you do a lot of drawings of like from movies and television. Like, so you absolutely love, like, because like, you did this Bill and Ted thing.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I'm gonna show my Bill and Ted drawing right after we talk
Do
about
it.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because we did a Bill and Ted episode when the movie came out.
I was crazy for Bill and Ted when I was younger. I loved the movies. I loved it.
Yeah.
So I made this piece of I made this print. Those are arts that I sell on conventions as well.
Yeah. Oh, so you make prints of these and you sell them.
Yeah, I make prints and sell on conventions.
Yeah,
so I love those. I love Bill and Ted. I always love it since I was a kid.
Yeah. No, we were big. I mean, I was a big fan. I thought Bill and Ted was good. This is the drawing I did.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Oh yeah.
This is also right after. Was this right
Awesome.
after? I think it might have been right after Eddie Van Halen died. So I think I was adding a little honoring Mr. Van Halen.
I made some tests for Bill and Ted comics as well. I tried to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have some pages. And then I don't know. Maybe later I can show up some of the pages I made, because I was really fan of Bill and Ted. And like I said, movies for me was always a huge influence. I always loved watching movies, and those movies from the 90s and the 80s made my head. I can say that.
Sure, like I mean they sort of formed who you became, and I'm guessing you might be a Harrison Ford fan, because you got Han Solo here, his blaster, and then we've got the Last Crusade. So I love it.
So Harrison Ford for me is the biggest star for me. I always.
He's your Spider-Man.
And Deckard from Blade Runner.
Oh yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Huge fans.
Hell yeah.
So, and Indiana Jones, I think, is my favorite movie character. I just love Indiana Jones films. So, and for me, it's a huge influence. I really, when there's I have to do a warm up here. I'm drawing something from Indiana Jones.
It was like Indiana Jones was like the greatest adventure. Like it really was. Like when I remember, I mean, Gary, you remember when we were kids and that movie hit, it was like, it just blew our minds. It was like, this is just mad adventure. Yeah, sure. The whip. It was great.
He goes, I ain't got time for that. Boom. Takes the guy out.
And then you got like all this, you do a lot of TV stuff that I've seen that you sent and that I found. So like Stranger Things, which kind of goes hand in hand. If you watched all those 80s movies, you're probably like, this was perfect.
I
love that. Those first 2 seasons of Stranger Things were perfect television.
Great entertainment, and
I
had some. This was a warm up I did, and I did some colors. I said, "Oh no, I like it."
That was a great season. That was season 3.
Three. Yeah, season 3. Great season.
I liked how they told the story throughout time. Like they kept comping around.
And this kind of loss of memory in a detective story is something very interesting that they work at.
For sure. Like the movie Memento. Have you seen the movie?
Yeah, Memento. Yes, great movie.
Right. It's sort of like it's sort of both of those have this sort of like time issue and memory issue, like and how do these things get solved? One is solved through sort of a device by using post-it notes, and the other one is solved through just grit and determination of like, how am I going to get through this thing? And it's a losing battle. Like the character knows he's not going to win this memory loss battle. So it's they're both the True Detective season 3 is really great.
I really like season 1 and season 3. Second season, I think they had a good idea, but it was very complex and maybe it was not well executed, I think.
Right.
But the idea, I think it was good, the idea of the second season, but I think they somehow lose their hand doing directing, I don't know, executing but season 3 they I think they made great season.
They came back strong. I hope it comes back and they do another one, but it would be great if they really switched it up and change, went into maybe an entirely different direction. Maybe they went into a city. I mean, something would be really interesting if it's becomes a different kind of monster. But I really enjoyed it. And then, of course, one of the big, huge TV shows of all time with the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I really loved watching Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, and those seasons. Those two characters had those two characters right there. I think may have had the best story arcs through the whole series.
I think
Jamie had the best story arc.
Yeah, Jamie for me had a fantastic story, and they were my favorite characters in the show.
Oh, for sure. And I think his arc of from where he starts and where he goes and where he comes back to, and and it's like, I mean, I think the idea that the creators of the show pulled from the books was that goodness is a handicap, and for being good you will suffer and you'll be punished for doing the right thing at all times. And it's like, and you could see how both of those characters, Tyrion hid his goodness at every cost, and Jamie was sort of like sheltered from things because he was the great hope for the family. So like everything that so he was never truly a bad person because he was never brought out into the world. And I think, so how those characters kind of made their way through, and the great result of, hey, spoiler alert, Ned Stark gets killed. But Ned Stark being the best character in the whole thing, like the goodest guy in the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're gone. We're getting rid of you because you can't live in this world where you can't chase down the right thing. You've got to go. If you want to win, you got to go about it in a different way. You can't be so sort of hi ho and pull out your sword and charge in there. You're just going to get killed. And Jamie Lannister's story is just the best arc in that whole show.
It's incredible because you start hating him.
Oh yeah,
and then somehow you go through the story, then you start loving him in the story. Start to cheer for him in the story. So
right.
That's great. For a character arc, that's fantastic.
For sure, and he's he's the perfect guy. He's tall and good looking and a great swordsman
and great knight.
Yeah, he's got it all, and then conversely his brother is is a little person, and he's hated just because of the way he looks, has nothing to do with who he is, but they love each other so much, and but they handicap Jamie, no pun intended, but they cut his hand off, and you root for him so much more because in this show they could kill anybody. I mean, you're not thinking like anybody's completely safe going through that series.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah, and so this guy's got no hand. You're like, he's not going to make it. He's going to go down. And it's great. So yeah, did you do any? I didn't see any more drawings Game of Thrones, but have you done more characters from the?
Yeah, I have done some studies from characters from Game of Thrones as well.
Yeah,
I made the Hound.
Yep. Another great character.
Yeah, another great character. I made Jon Snow as well. Yep. I made. Now I don't remember the name of Jon Snow's friend, the one from the Savage People.
Oh, with the red hair.
Red hair. I don't remember his name, but I made him. I made a lot of characters. I mean, So, Arya, I made Arya with the Hound. So I made some drawings. Yeah, because I really enjoyed this show. So always sketching something from the show.
It's super exciting.
The last season, maybe I think it wasn't as good as the others. No, I don't know if they rushed it to finish the story. I don't know.
they did. I don't think that's the question that they rushed it. I think the inherent problem was they had great source material until
that's true.
they went past the author's ability to finish the series. So
that's true.
Had there been a complete series for them to adapt, I think it would have been an ending that everybody would have loved. But I think the guys who created the show are really good at adapting things. I don't know if they're great story writers, but they're very good at adapting because they took a very, very dense
difficult book to adapt.
And they made it work, and they made it so entertaining to be able to hop through all these characters, week after week, and never feel like what's going on or I'm missing something. Like they did a great job bringing us through those stories. So I'm reluctant to start watching the what is it, the Wheel of Time series.
I would say that it's going to be on HBO. I think
it's on Amazon. I think it's on
Amazon. Yes, Amazon, right? Yeah, that's another one that I'm curious to watch.
Sure.
Adaptation. Because the book, I have to be honest, I did not read the book.
Right.
But Game of Thrones, I read some of the books. Mm-hmm. But my brother read Wheel of Time, and he always told me about Wheel of Time. He always told me, man, this is the greatest book of fantasy, medieval fantasy that has ever been made. You have to read. I should have read, but I did not. But I'm expecting much because who read the book told me that it's amazing. And if they do a good adaptation, it will be great. It will be a great series too. So,
well, I think, I hope they do. I really do hope they do a great job with it because I mean, it is such a beloved series, and it's not like Game of Thrones because it is much more fantasy magic. Like it is more high fantasy than Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is very low fantasy. But I'm super. I mean, I'm excited. I really hope it's good. I don't want to. It's not like I'm not expecting to be Game of Thrones. I'm expecting to be something different. But I do love me some fantasy, high fantasy swords and sorcery. So I'll watch it. I know I'll watch it. I'll be on it. I will.
No, for sure I will. I will watch.
Yeah. And then because I was actually just listening to a very good friend of mine's podcast, and they were talking about Dune because they had a bunch of authors, and so have you seen the movie yet?
Not yet. I'm going to see this week. I'm going to watch this week here.
Excellent.
To the movies. Yeah.
The look of the film is unbelievable. It is. I mean, Denis Villeneuve is an amazing director. I love all his stuff. So this is right up there.
Everybody's saying that visually it's a spectacular movie.
Yeah. And I think he did a great job taking a very complex story and once again streamlining it down so you can understand what's happening. I mean, listen, film and literature are two very different things, so you can't compare the two. Speaking of Dune and comics, did you ever see the Bill Sienkiewicz adaptation?
Yes, I have seen. Yes.
I love that, and and the fact that like one of the all-time greatest comic book artists like Bill Sienkiewicz, did that is just unbelievable.
Yeah. He's very unique. So he made everything in a very unique way. That's a style that's impossible to, how can I say, to repeat.
Oh yeah.
It's so unique, and it's so great.
Yeah.
I love Bill Sienkiewicz. His work, Elektra.
Elektra Assassin is one of the best.
It's fantastic.
It's one of the best comics. It is one of the greatest pieces of artwork for comic book, in comic book form. It's just mind blowing.
It's great.
Now, who are the artists that like you've loved? I mean, like, even say names that we might not even know, because I mean, I'm writing. I've already written Trinity and Bud Spencer down, so I'm going to track that down.
Yeah, they are. Another movie that I really loved when I was a kid, when I watched, was Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, come on, it's the best.
I love that movie.
It's
Yeah, it's great. It's a great movie, and I really loved John Carpenter's movies.
Mm-hmm.
The Thing, I think it's great movie.
It's
The Thing,
it's his best movie. Like it's his best film. The Thing. It is
I,
amazing.
I guess it is, but for me, The Thing is mind blowing. It's a great movie, and I really love his other movies. Oh, Big Trouble, Little China, Halloween. You know, they are more horror.
Escape from New York.
Well, Escape from New York. I love that movie. When I was a kid, always on in our holidays, they passed it on through TV, passed it on TV, and I watched it, I think 20 times.
That soundtrack, the music, that constant beat going when he's running, like it is.
Because he's going to die, you know.
Like the clock is running. Got to keep moving, Snake.
Yeah, that was fantastic, and I like that John Carpenter do the soundtracks as well from his movies. You know? So I'm a great fan, and I have a fun story with that because this time I went to New York. John Carpenter has a publishing company, you know, with all her stories. Yeah, he has. I don't remember exactly the name right now, and they had a place over there at New York. And how I was going through all the publishers and showing my work to everybody, I went over there, but I was not aware that that company was John Carpenter company. And I went there and I said, "Oh, is there someone that I can show my work? You know, I'd like to show my portfolio to the publishers." And there was a lady that, how can I say that, invited me to go to sites to see my portfolio, you know, to speak with me. And then I showed my portfolio, and we spoke about comics and tal, that I was interested. I was searching for work over there. And I spoke to her, very polite. Then I went out. When I went out and got her card, then I saw that was John Carpenter's wife that was speaking to me, and that was his company. And I said, "Oh my God, I spoke to John Carpenter's wife, and I was not aware of."
That's so funny.
Yeah, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm a huge fan of her husband."
Yeah,
I said, and but anyway, that's a funny story, you know, because I spoke to her. I was not aware that she was his wife, and then when I got out, I said, "Oh my God, I spoke to his wife. I should have told man. I was just a fan of her husband."
Sure. That's amazing. Now everybody who's going to see or listen to this will, when they go to the New York Comic Con, will be running around looking for John Carpenter's wife. Oh man, that's so cool. Well, we were talking. So artists. So
artists. Yeah. In comic books or
or anything. I mean, for that matter. But yeah.
Yeah, but speaking of movies, as I said, I love Bud Spencer and Terence Hill, Harrison Ford, Kurt Russell, Clint Eastwood. That's
tough guys. You like all the tough guys.
Oh, I really love tough guys.
Yeah.
I grew up watching Bruce Lee,
the greatest tough guy ever.
Yeah, Bruce Lee, fantastic. Wow, Rambo, Rocky, all those movies made my childhood.
Yeah.
So they're I really love those movies, you know. Those actors, you know, I always seen their movies and made my childhood, let's say. So when I'm drawing, I like to draw them. So nowadays I still like to draw those.
Well, what's that movie series that Stallone did with all the 80s action stars?
It's Expendables.
With Expendables, right? You know, so
it's got all the guys.
He got everyone.
Together.
He got everyone. It's amazing. So I thoroughly laughed at those movies. Had a great time.
It's very funny. Even Chuck Norris appeared.
I know. So you met Carpenter's wife. I went to a film festival here where I live. It was a film festival that celebrated stuntmen. That was the premise of it. And we were waiting for a movie to start, so we're hanging out in the lobby, and there's nice chairs, and we're all spending time chit-chatting. There are these two women, and I'm talking to them, and turns out it's Chuck Norris's sister-in-law and Chuck Norris's wife. Because it was her husband. So Chuck Norris's husband is the stunt coordinator for all of Chuck Norris's productions, and he's the guy. They're the people who behind this film festival. So they were just hanging out, waiting for whatever they had to do, and here I am chit chatting with Chuck Norris. Yeah. So Chuck Norris is cool when we were kids. You know, he's an oddball, but he's definitely cool. He's definitely a cool dude.
When I was a kid, he was very famous, and he had all those movies, Brad Dog, all those.
Right.
Yeah, and he made that movie that he fought Bruce Lee at the Coliseum. Yes. No, that's right. I don't remember if it's The Way of the Dragon. I don't remember the name exactly.
I don't remember which one it was either. I feel I'm letting down all my martial arts love, but yeah, he was the. I mean, come on, he fought Bruce Lee. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fought Bruce Lee.
Oh my God. That was great.
And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a student, was a Bruce Lee student. I think it was.
And Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
All those guys were. So I think that's so cool. Now, did you have any favorite comic book artists that were when you were? Yeah.
Yeah, I have. Well, I have a preference for the classics.
Okay.
I don't know. But I love...
now you're gonna make us feel old when you say the classics, and they're gonna be
okay.
Oh, you mean my friends? Yeah. So
Jack Kirby. I'm
a
huge fan.
That's definitely classic.
That's definitely classic.
Mazzucchelli, I love.
Sure.
José Luis Garcia Lopes, from DC.
Yeah.
For me, he's one of the best of
No,
all.
I think Gil Kane and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez are the two artists who could draw the human body in any position,
at any angle.
It doesn't matter. You're like, oh, you want to add rain into that? Sure, I'll add rain. Like those guys are like they were the best at drawing the anatomy. Unbelievably the best.
I agree with you. And it's incredible. The storytelling as well from Garcia Lopez is fantastic.
He really is like pound for pound, like the perfect comic book artist. It's all perfect.
My dream was to be like Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I started drawing thinking, I want to one day draw like Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
Me too.
And always his figures are anatomically perfect and elegant. He does so elegant his figures. So I was all impressed by the way he draws his. And as you said, he could draw from any position, any angle,
anything.
And it's incredible. Yeah.
And he's not looking at reference. He's not like this. You could just draw this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure if you're this much of a fan, I'm sure you have. But if you haven't read his, was it the Atom? No, his Atari Force comic book.
Yes, I have read. Yeah.
That to me is some of the best comic book ever. It's
incredible. I have them digitally. I had those comics when I was a kid.
Okay.
But through time I lost, but I have them digitally. I have them here with me, and they are amazing. One of his works that I love is Cinder and Ash.
Yes.
I think it's such a good story, such a great thriller. I love that comic, and the way he saw things, it's amazing. And all the other comics that he had, and I have a huge collection from Garcia Lopes here. When I met him first time, I told him he was such a nice guy. When we had this convention that I told here in Brazil, Comic Con Experience, I don't know, I'm not sure if it was the first one or the second one. He came down to Brazil for the convention, and I had the opportunity to meet him. So he was such a nice guy, very, very nice guy. So I was very excited to have the opportunity to meet him, and it's really fun.
He is really one of the greatest ever. I
have that.
Okay,
okay, go.
No. Who else? I want to hear who else that you.
I have a lot of. a lot of great comic book artists. If I speak more nowadays, I really like Chris Samnee a lot.
Oh man, beautiful.
I think his work is just great. And I don't know, I have so many artists that I'm a fan of Will Eisner as well. If you say about
Right
his
on.
life,
Yeah.
his capacity of telling stories, emotional stories, is great, and the way he created new stuff in storytelling is great as well. I love Bruce Timm, that came from
Sure.
animation. Darwin Cook as well.
Oh
I
man,
think
Darwin was just amazing. Just
yeah,
so
yeah, it
good.
was incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. I had the opportunity to meet him, and I got his autograph in my Parker comic,
Yeah.
and it was amazing.
Say Parker, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
man. Yeah. Wow.
It's such a great comic, and if Just League he made what's the name in English? New Frontier.
Yep.
New Frontier is just great, amazing. Oh,
Yep.
And there are a lot of great artists.
Well, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, like we were talking about earlier, how there's with the sort of the globalization of comic books, we have this breadth of artists, available to us that you can see a Bengal from France, who he's so cool. Like his artwork is just so cool, and we get people from like Otto Schmidt from Russia, who's just killing it. Like, and there's just all these amazing artists all around, and it really is. I think it's a golden age of comic book creation right now. I think that we're really afforded this latitude where I think for the previous 30-40 years we have been relegated, and listen, I love so much of it, but we're relegated to what I call fights and tights. It's just superheroes duking it out, and only geniuses get their chance to do something different. So we get a Frank Miller doing something fantastic, or or an Alan Moore. But I think now anybody can do something that's just not straight up superhero comic books anymore.
Yeah.
And we're accepting this, and I think and we're reading these things, and I think it's just there's almost too many. That's the problem. There's just too many damn comics.
But we've seen a lot of different kinds of stories nowadays in comics, and I think that's great, for the industry, for the media, to not be exactly related to one kind of comic, but a media that can be used to tell any story you want. And as you said, they are creating such great stories. I have been reading Saga, that I really love. Saga is amazing.
So good.
Very good.
It's so...
I have been reading, let me get the name here, I forget, Oblivion Song. I like it from...
Very good.
Nice, very good comic. So I have been reading so many things here that they are not superhero stories, but they are great stories, great adventures. So one that I really enjoyed reading, I read the entire series, was The Last Man on Earth.
Oh yes, why?
Wow, that was, for me, it was fantastic, this series. So there are many
series.
many
I'm watching
comics.
it now. It's really good.
Yeah, it's good. They said they canceled the show. No, I read. I think
it's canceled, and it sucks because I like it. It's really good.
It was good.
Yeah,
the series is good.
I mean, I think it's tough. I mean, I don't know how these companies do it, with so many streaming services and, networks out there. Why The Last Man gets on television and can stay on television, because it's not a short kind of in and out. It's an epic tale. So speaking of epic tales, I'm looking at Gary's very cool drawing going on here.
Epic tales.
You're involved in an epic tale with us.
You are.
this is great. So you are involved in Gary's brainchild that was birthed right here on this screen, doing what he's doing right
crash over.
That's right. Gary's new thing. Yeah, so you're involved in the crash over. You are the artist helmsman of the Evil Monkey Man segment of the crash over.
Yeah.
Issue 1.
And it was really fun to do. When Blake asked me if I wanted to do it, I said, "Oh, of course, let's do it." I think it was a great opportunity to draw other characters, to make this mixture. So for me, it was really cool to draw, and I really like to draw the Monkey Man series. It's a really fun comic to draw. You know, I enjoy a lot doing the comic book pages for Monkey Man. It's such a fun story. So I think the characters are very let me find the word in English. They are very charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? They are very charismatic. They are very funny. The stories are funny. I think Blake writes the stories that are new, but somehow they are similar to all types of stories that we are used to read in comics.
Yeah.
Not that serious. They are not intended to be that complex. They are intended to entertain, to be fun,
Mm-hmm.
to have a good message, to have a good vibe, and I think that's something really cool to do and to be part of. So, and in this spirit, I made also the crossover between United Forces and those pages of the crossover between United Forces and the Evil Monkey Man, and it was fun to draw the other characters as well, and they together. You know?
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, it's interesting because, you know, having sort of been enlisted into this project, you know, I was able to work, you know, with each sort of kind of creative, you know, entity of this comic. So it was fun to work with Blake on coming up with a story, you know, working on his story, his section of the story, and, you know, and getting to play in his world. Like, I mean, you know, taking modern age characters, throwing them into the Civil War, and how does that language play out? How do we tell a little quick story here, a light issue here, and it was super fun to get to get my fingers in that pie, I guess, so to speak. But yeah, it was really very fun, and we the artwork keeps coming in from everybody, and every week something new gets dropped into this, you know, group folder of the, you know, pages. And I mean, everybody's just doing some amazing artwork in this. And I mean, I really can't wait for the Kickstarter to go live so we can get this out there, so people can get their orders in and, you know, get their hands on this comic. Because, you know, I mean, you know, you've been drawing this comic for a while with Blake, and now you're moving on, and you're doing you're going to be working, you know, with Marvel and doing character designs, you know, and that's I mean, I feel like we got lucky, you know, like we get lucky that, you know, you're involved, and now next thing you know, you're going to be doing something super very cool that a lot of people will see. You know, Nick Cagnetti, who does the Pink Lemonade, you know, he has a deal with a really great publisher, and like a lot of people are going to get to start seeing Pink Lemonade. We'll never get to talk to Nick again. He's going to be famous in the next year. So he's, you know, and you're probably going to be a Brazilian air next year and flying around in a helicopter. So
that's awesome.
It would be awesome, but I don't know.
You listen, you have the flux capacitor behind you, so clearly, like, time travel figured out.
Yeah, Back to the Future.
I
have Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Back to the Future, and I have another one of Game of Thrones over there.
You've got the holy quadratic. I don't know, the quadrennial. I don't know, but you've got the best of. I love Star Wars. Star Wars is my.
I love to. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. since I was a kid, and I'm a huge fan of Han Solo as well since I was a kid.
I think we can attest to the fact that you're a huge fan of Han Solo.
Yeah.
So now, have you started working with Marvel? Like,
I have been working through almost 4 weeks, almost a month, and I was reached through Instagram.
Okay.
And I made I started making 3 weeks of, how can I say it, testing. And they really liked my works, my concepts, and they called me to be in the entire project with them.
Wow.
That's
awesome.
It's going to start next season, next year. We're going to start. So it was such a great opportunity for me. So I don't know. And we were talking about it's Spider-Man, it's another media, it's animation and character design. So it was just a huge opportunity for me to embrace.
It sounds fantastic. I mean, it really sounds fantastic. Like, I mean, it sounds like a great opportunity. It sounds like, a great playground to go and, use your talents to really, express yourself. So, that's amazing. I'm the younger version of me is super envious. I'm like, oh, this sounds so good. He's gonna have so much fun. So
yeah, I feel so lucky, to be honest. I feel so lucky to be.
We're gonna have to have you come back on like next year, just so we can kind of get like an idea like how the process has worked for you and like kind of where you land at, because I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot to it. What do you got there, Gary? What do you keep looking at, buddy?
Oh, I keep looking in the Evil Monkey Man comics so I can get the colors.
Nice. I like that. I'm like, Gary's reading comics during the episode.
I'm reading comics. It's a comic show, right?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Somehow makes sense.
And we'll also get you back on soon. But I think we'll do a big group thing for the to sort of promote the Kickstarter and
great.
Kickstarter, and we can kind of cross talk and show some artwork and I'm super excited. Like I was really excited when Gary said like, oh, I'm contacting Maurizio. We're gonna, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, and like this whole ability to be able to sit here and talk to one another is just
it's amazing.
It's unbelievably cool.
Yeah, for me, it's a pleasure to be here speaking with you guys.
Yay!
It's a great opportunity for me. When Blake asked me if I want to be part of this episode, I said, yeah, it'd be a pleasure to speak with them.
I think you swore up and down saying those jerks, no way.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
no way. For me, it was a cool opportunity to be here to talk with you guys, talk about comics, pop art, culture, everything that involves our work. So for me, it's such great.
He's part of the crew.
It's true. You are part of the crew. I mean, by default, you become a part of the crew. So for better or for worse, I don't know. To be determined as to what that means in the long run. So people can find you on Instagram at your name, but your name backwards because that's because Clip Studio flipped the direction of the book on you. So now it's Leone Maurizio. If you look that up, or they can find you with Maurizio Leone on Behance.net. So
yeah. I have also some works over there. I need to I don't know, refresh the works over there.
Yeah, update it.
Update. Yes, that's perfect. I need to update it. But you can find me over there. Yeah.
There's nobody is updated on their website.
Maurizio. It's backwards.
I think that when I made my Instagram, Mauricio Leone already existed, I think.
We'd have gotten rid of that guy.
And they suggested me to do backwards. I said, okay, that's
good suggestion.
Yeah.
Now, and then I made backwards.
now poor Leone Maurizio is like, hey, I can't get my own name.
Hey, Leone, Maurizio.
You've stolen someone's name. Oh no.
I think it was very similar when we started the email thing, that we would like to have an email, and when we were searching to have our name on the email, it was always had already been picked. The name.
It is tough. I mean, the one advantage of being our age group is when email came into being, we were the first ones to get them. So we were like, oh, our names are right here. Nobody's taken our name yet.
Yeah.
You know, fast forward.
That's not a problem. Yeah.
And now it's a problem. Yeah. Some guys got my name on a website, and I'm really upset. And like he just has it. He doesn't do anything with it. I'm really upset.
Son of a.
I think he's a wonderful person, and if he ever wants to sell it to me, I'd be happy to talk to him. That's all I'm going to say. Well,
happens,
my friend. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to having you on. We can talk about the Crashover comic book in a little bit, and then also we'll have you back on next year because I really want to hear how this goes.
Yeah,
because it's a big. Listen, it's a big change happening, you know. So I'm truly fascinated by how creative people, you know, handle these new changes when they happen in their careers. So I'm excited, man, and enjoy the spring and the summer.
Thanks a lot, guys. I really enjoyed it. It was such a nice chat. Chatting here with you guys. Time flies. I don't know if that's how you say, but
it's exactly.
It's very so fast, and it was so funny, and it was really cool to be here. And every time you need to call me, you can call me. It will be my pleasure to be here to speak with you guys.
We got the hotline to Marvel.
That's right. We get the hotline to Brazil. Right. Well, hey, thank you everyone for
thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, click, subscribe, whatever Phil says. Go watch the previous episode, listen to what he said, do what Phil says, and that's what we want you to do. Until next time, ciao, everyone.